It didn't go. Mahatma Gandhi said, "There are people in this world so hungry that God cannot appear to them except in the form of bread. If we are to be God's hands, we better learn how to make some bread." Hello, I am Laura Kidd, a homemade bread enthusiast, and I want to share with you my reasons for learning how to make bread in hopes that you'll join me in making every kitchen smell of freshly baked bread. I learned how to make bread as a young mother over 20 years ago, with only one intention: to provide nutritious bread for my family. As my bread making skills improved, I became more confident in my abilities and learned how to make many different kinds of bread: cinnamon chip bread, walnut bread, 14-grain bread, sourdough bread. Learning how to make a variety of bread kept my family full and happy and inspired me to learn more. Originally, I viewed obtaining this skill as a necessity for feeding my family, and it added to my list of motherly duties. It would be just another chore. What I discovered was making bread has a great purpose. Learning how to make bread is more than acquiring knowledge and skill, although that is important, but it is in the giving of the bread that opens doors and enables you to comfort and serve others. There is almost a universal love for bread that brings an instant connection between people and encourages conversation and closeness. Knowing how to make bread is also beneficial to you and your family. Learning the skill itself is a confidence builder. You can also teach the skill to your family and friends, creating special bonds. Homemade bread is more nutritious and less expensive than store-bought bread. When bread is unavailable, you can make your own. But the most important reason for learning how to make bread is to give it away. The gift of homemade bread communicates love and acceptance. So, let's review. The 3 reasons for learning how to make bread are: learning the skills of bread making builds confidence. Teaching others how to make bread creates a special bond. Homemade bread is more nutritious and less expensive than store-bought bread. Just as there are many reasons for making bread, there are many different preparation methods. Let's begin by understanding some of the basic bread making methods and build our confidence as we learn. What I have found as I have taught bread making classes is, once I have demystified the bread making process, it reduced a person's initial reluctance to learn how. First, you need to determine which bread method fits your lifestyle. This will increase the likelihood of continued bread making. If you are newlywed or a single student, a bread maker might be your choice. It produces 1 loaf of bread at a time and is very simple to use. If you have a large family or a carb-loving family and need to have a larger quantities of bread on hand, a bread mixer might fit your needs much better. 1 batch from a bread mixer can produce up to 6 loaves depending on the mixer. Another advantage of the bread mixer is that it comes with many attachments, allowing the mixer to be a multitasking appliance. And finally, you may be the type of person who likes to get their hands dirty and mix and knead your dough by hand. This method requires more time and energy, but it is a great skill to have in times of emergency. After you have determined which bread making methods works best for you, it is time to learn about the ingredients of basic bread making and how they work together. Understanding the ingredients creates knowledge and builds confidence in your abilities. So, how do the ingredients work together? Flour creates gluten, which is a structural protein. It gives the bread the ability to take and hold its shape. Yeast is a leavening agent, and according to the Fine Cooking magazine, it makes the dough rise and strengthens the bread dough and helps develop the gluten. Honey is a sweetener. Salt boosts the flavor of your bread. Believe me, I have forgotten to add salt one time and the bread had no flavor whatsoever. Salt also tightens the gluten structure of the bread, Salt slows down the yeast, keeping the bread from rising too fast and compromising the structure of the bread. Oil lubricates the bread dough and provides flavor. This helps to retain the gases released during the baking process. Those are the basic ingredients for bread. There are many additions you could choose to have and have different flavors. Another way to add confidence to your bread making is to learn how to correct mistakes. Most errors are easily corrected. If your dough is too sticky, simply add more flour. If your dough is too dry, add a little more water. If you have only 3 eggs and it requires 4, don't worry about it. Add a little more water. You need to learn to relax. It's just bread, and your family will eat it, even if no one else will. Lastly, you can substitute ingredients if you need to. There are many times I have started to make bread and didn't realize I was out of a certain item. If you don't have all of your wheat flour, add some white flour. If you are out of honey, use agave. When you have obtained a solid base knowledge of bread making, it allows you to share what you have learned with your family and friends. Teaching others will deepen your understanding, just like the BYU Idaho's learning model suggests. It also communicates to others the importance of the topic and of their importance to you. Social bonds are formed as bread making skills are taught. People appreciate time and effort taken to teach them, making the learners feel special. Fond memories are made during the learning process. Some of my favorite memories are me teaching my children how to make bread and to see the joy on their faces as they eat their own creations. Sharing the underlying benefits of giving bread away connects people together. There is a connection between the teacher and the student. The student understands they are being taught a worthwhile but underutilized skill. According to the National Association for the Education of Young Children, when teaching children how to make bread, they are developing their math skills as they measure ingredients, social skills by taking turns, and science skills as they watch different agents interact with each other, with the bonus of eating their homework. There is also a connection between the giver and the receiver. The giver feels satisfied they have helped someone in need, either temporarily or emotionally. The receiver feels loved by the giver, and the trial is lightened for a moment. Teaching others a skill that engages all the senses in the process promotes potent memories for the learner and a connection that not otherwise made in the learning process. In the learning process, you will find out how nutritious and inexpensive homemade bread is. Also, in times of limited resources, knowing how to make bread is an indicator of forethought, planning, and love. Nutritious, tasty, and inexpensive bread is worth the effort of learning how to make it. The question is homemade bread cheaper than store-bought bread? The average cost of whole wheat bread in the United States, according to the Nourishing Gourmet website, is $2 for the cheapest loaf of bread, which makes the store bread a better deal. But when homemade bread is compared to similar quality breads, the costs increase to $4 or $5 a loaf. This cost comparison would put the homemade bread at $2 a loaf, beating the store-bought bread by 50%. You might think, can homemade bread taste as good as store-bought bread? Believe me, with practice and the right recipe, homemade bread can taste as good or better than store-bought bread. Even though the main reasons for learning how to make bread are all practical, and each reason provides the learner, the teacher, the giver, and recipient with an end result of love in the form of the loaf of bread. The process of making bread actually begins with the love the baker has for their family and friends. When I first started making bread, I was not very good at it. The loaves were oddly shaped and the bread was dense. As I continued, my skill improved and my confidence grew. The first time my bread looked and tasted good was pivotal for me. I began trying different recipes and letting others outside of my family try my bread. It was exciting to have this new skill. The excitement generated desire to teach others my newfound skill. Teaching others about the value of making bread and giving them the knowledge to do it is very fulfilling. But it is the addictive feeling of joy I receive when giving bread to others that keeps me baking. President Monson taught us in the April 1992 conference that a small act of kindness cannot be underestimated, like giving someone a loaf of bread. Both the receiver and the giver are blessed in those moments. The receiver feels the needed love and comfort, and the giver experiences the joy of being the Lord's hands. Thank you.